Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Rex, and this is my friend Kerry Jackson, and we're here with episode number 5 of Old Guys and New Guitars. Today's episode, we've got another guitar in the collection that Kerry has not had a chance to put his hands on, so we'll get his reactions to this guitar. Okay, well, we'll get started with today's guitar. As you can see from the case, it has the word Gibson on it. So we'll turn this over to Kerry and have him open it up and get his reactions to today's guitar.
Gibson, why do you keep coming up with these fly-by-night companies that no one's ever heard of? Well, that's a pretty juicy shape to have the word Gibson on it. So I'm a little excited about this one. Oh, God. Ugh. Well, look at that. Nice top. Beautiful, kind of tigery maple. It must be a French guitar. It says Les Paul on it. I haven't really heard of these, but I'll see what I can do with it.
So this is a 2010 Les Paul Plus. And before we tune up the volume on it and everything, we'll take a look at some of the components. I found this guitar at Dave's Guitars in Wisconsin, so it was about 14 years old, but it had some of the things I was looking for, particularly that plus top in the finish. But this is a mahogany body guitar. It's got the nitrocellulose lacquer in it. It's a cherry burst finish, a carved top. It is weight relieved, I believe. They were weight relieved at that time, and this weighs in at about 8.5 pounds. So that's not too bad. I don't know if it's light.
But I have a friend that's got an 11-pound Les Paul.
Yeah,
so this one doesn't feel bad at all.
It's got the 60 slim profile neck, bound rosewood with trapezoid inlays. 22 medium jumbo frets, 12-inch radius, 1.68 on the nut, and 24.75-inch scale. On the pickups, it's got the Lead Pro and the Rhythm Pro burst bucker pickups in it. Two-tone control, three-way switch, as you found out, the Nutric connector jack. It's got Tone Pro's Tune-O-Matic bridge, Tone Pro's locking tailpiece, and Grover locking tuners. So before you play it, just tell me kind of your physical reaction to the guitar.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, locking tuners, oh boy, big fan. Guitars just stay in tune better with locking tuners. Plus, it's so easy to slam your string in there, chop the damn thing off and get going, instead of winding strings and poking holes in your fingers. And winding strings is a pretty exact science anyway. I didn't realize till pretty late in life how many winds up here affect the whole action and the whole way that the guitar responds and stuff. So big fan of these quality Grover locking tuners. They're Gibson style too. They have a classic Gibson look on this side, but boy, oh boy, that's a nice thing to have. Of course it's beautiful. What can you say? A flame top Les Paul with a nice cherry finish. Talk about classic. It doesn't get any more classic than that. And I love standards. They try to do a lot of fancy stuff with Les Pauls, and there's Supremes and all these things. And, the customs are okay, but I kind of don't like when there's so much inlay and so much, stripes of white and black around here and big blocks. And then there's some models now that are getting fancy and putting in like, birdland style inlays and things, trying to gimmick them up more. And there's something about the less standard. The way this thing looked in 1959 or whatever, boom, there it is, This one's very pretty. And it was very in tune. I was tuning while you were talking. We had just pulled it out of the case, and it was some very small tweaks. There's only one string that really seemed to need more than a nudge.
Okay, guys. Well, we've got the Les Paul all tuned in here and ready to go. So I'll turn it over to Kerry.
And it seems like it keeps its tuning very nicely. Like you said, you tuned it and put it in the case last night. I barely had to tweak it to get it to be in tune. So first of all, I'll keep it clean, and I'll run through some just basic sounds of the pickups. Here's the neck pickup. Sweet. I like when humbuckers can sound good, clean. It seems like really good humbuckers have a nice, clean sound too, and kind of cheaper or something lesser. I don't know why they're lesser, but some humbuckers I hear are just so mid-rangey and chunky that you only like them when they're distorted. So isn't that nice? You know, seems like some jazzy guy would be very happy with that. So let's put it in the middle. We got both pickups now, 2 pickups. Yeah, baby. Nice. Yeah, 2 humbuckers blazing away, and listen how clean they are. Then, of course, the bridge pickup, going to be a little brighter trebly. Funky. I know Rex and I haven't revealed this, but one of the big challenges here is whenever I test out a guitar, I know about 6 million songs, so I start going through songs. And, you know, we're on YouTube. If I start playing everybody's songs, the channel's probably going to go black because we're not paying for the copyrights and stuff. So I'm just dying to slam into Creedence and the Beatles and Tom Petty and Rick Derringer and you name them. I want to play them right now, especially on a classic like this. So that's a little daunting, but let's try a little more. What happens if we start overdriving the thing a little bit? Hear that like third note that I'm not playing?
Yeah.
Les Pauls do this thing when you bend two strings at once up here. I'm bending two notes, but you'll hear three. One sounds like it's going down when I'm going up too. Hear that? Yeah. There it goes again. Boy, that's with barely distorted too. It just stings and snaps and pops.
Well, so the reason I put this one in was to kind of give us a foundation, kind of a starting point for listening to humbucker pickup guitars.
Yeah.
And things that kind of emulate what a Gibson does. And so I thought, why not start with a Gibson?
If you want to emulate what a Gibson does,
Yeah. Yeah.
you might as well go to the, King.
So we'll start, because I'm sure during this series we'll have some other guitars with humbuckers in, or that are attempting to be able to do that, and maybe some other things. From a studio musician's perspective, one I'm asking is the weight of the guitar isn't quite so critical as it might be on stage, right?
Well, true, right. It doesn't really matter in the studio because you don't have to stand up. Or you can just stand up once in a while if you prefer it when you're playing something, but then, it's not like being on stage. And Les Pauls are heavy. This one must be weight relieved, though, because this feels pretty nice. And they haven't gone crazy. It's not like now it's a semi-hollow Les Paul. I can tell they must have just routed out a few, plugs here and there. But it definitely doesn't have that 9-pound, 10-pound feel to it. Boy, 12-inch radius fretboard is feeling fine. Is it 12-inch all the way, or is it multi-radius, or is it any of that crap?
You know that now that you say that, yeah, it's 12-inch radius, but
Well, it feels great, whatever it is right now. But this one's extra nice, Rex. It seems like you got, the details of the binding. I can run my fingers up and down. The wonderful Philip McKnight out of Phoenix, Arizona, that does those great videos. He puts a little woman's footy stocking on his hand and goes like this up and down the frets, which is a great test. And I can tell that if I had my little footy on, I would feel nothing. I mean, that is smooth sailing. That is polished and buffed and sweet, and the binding seems extra nice. See how the binding goes up the fret just a tiny bit and stuff? Man. That's, if you're going to get a Les Paul, it ought to have these little details that just kind of make it the Rolls Royce. And man, this one really does.
So, when I was researching this guitar, I did the specs that I came across. There were some transitions happening, but they did mention that some of them have an asymmetrical slim profile neck. So I'm not quite sure.
Multi-radius
so
neck where it's a little flatter down here than it is up there.
Feeling a little bit of a difference there.
But
because of that question that you asked.
Whatever it is, it's feeling good.
Yeah.
And I haven't even got to real distortion yet. That was that was my sort of twin amp that I started with. And then I have twin amp if you barely had overdrive going or something. And that's what the second thing was, with a little more bluesy sting to it. Well, here's a little more getting into Marshall territory, maybe. That's that nice, a lot of times, I wish I could show you the example, but I don't want to run into copyright problems. But like Angus Young in AC/DC is never as distorted as anyone thinks he is, right? Now he has 8 million decibels of death behind him on stage, but it's kind of a clean sound. I always see people in bands, like they'll do an AC/DC song and they start out with this, a saturated death metal sound, and Angus never sounds like that. He has sustain, he has all these balls, there's tubes, there's warmth, but it's never saturated a distortion. So a lot of those classic AC/DC riffs don't sound right when you're just over Drive City. They have to have that, just broken up, but clean enough where you can hear all the notes. And this is excelling at that. That's still a small amount of distortion, but
So when you're in the studio recording, Kerry, what type of session makes you think, I'd really like to have a Les Paul on this thing?
Well, it's cool because this one sort of is very special. This actually kind of surpasses my typical Les Paul expectations, because you might be sort of, slightly prejudiced or leaning toward, well, if you want, lots of sustain, mid-range, humbucker distortion, like there's nothing like a good old Les Paul, going through a Marshall or something. But as you can hear when I started here with that like twin reverb sound, those, all three iterations of the pickups, and I didn't even touch the tone knobs yet. That was just with the tone up all the way. But, that sweet mellow bridge pickup, that real sweet Dickie Betts, whatever you want to call it, thing when both humbuckers are going. These are good, clean humbuckers. And I'm a big fan of, like if you're going to check out a pickup or check out a guitar, if someone plugs in a wall of doom, a distortion, that doesn't tell you anything. I have guitars with lipstick, a 1955 one magnet and a piece of wire pickups on them. They all sound good, distorted. That's easy. Like what do they sound like clean? That's the test of if they're going to distort well anyway. So this is, for a Les Paul, very versatile. This one's so sweet that there's songs that I might think, well, I can't use a Les Paul. I need a single coil to get it like a cleaner sound. And then did you hear those clean humbuckings? Humbuckers, I could be pretty happy with some of those clean sounds on a song. And they're not all honking in mid-range. They seemed really full-bodied and stuff. And Billy Gibbons loves those old Les Pauls and all that old ZZ stuff. No wonder, huh? It's all that harmonic I get just by playing with my thumb a little bit on the... I might take a bite of my sandwich. Want to? Can I get up there? Yeah, high E's pretty good. I thought I was going to put it through big distortion. That's just really kind of some, warm overdrive, a little bit of compression. That's not a ton of distortion. This is just a sustain monster. This one has a really cool little thing on the back here that looks black on camera, but it's a real, like a dark piece of glass. You can actually see the wiring and the pots through it. So they didn't have to do it, but it looks cool. And then we have to commend whoever owned this before Rex had it 15 years ago, and it does not have a molecule of belt buckle scratch, and there's just no dings. So anyway, I'm happy for Rex and envious at the same time because, you know, Les Pauls are all cool, but I think you really scored. This just feels fantastic.
I think now's a really unique time to be a fan of guitars. There are so many wonderful, inexpensive guitars out now that you can pretty much get anything in a reasonable budget. And for me, Gibsons and some of the higher brands, Paul Reed Smith, some of those have always been expensive guitars. But we're kind of at a unique time here. There are opportunities, and I felt like this was one. This guitar actually, I got a little bit below the $2,000 mark, which normally the new ones are going to be up in the $3,000 mark.
A new one that looks anything that even just looks like this, not to mention if it might play this good, is right in the 3,000 minimum range just by having a beautiful top and being a Les Paul standard.
So I have to also say that when I got this guitar and I hung it up on my wall and I was just looking at it, it dawned on me why I was attracted to that finish, and that was because the first electric guitar that I ever purchased was back in the late 70s, and it was a Japanese knockoff of this guitar. And I searched through my a box of photos, and I found a guitar, a picture where we were rehearsing with that guitar. And I realized, oh my God, I imprinted on it. So it's taken me 50 years, literally 50 years to get to this point where I actually purchased my first.
To end up with the real one.
Les Paul. So I guess what I'm saying is there is hope out there. If you need a guitar today, there's plenty of inexpensive versions where you can do what you need to accomplish. But at the same time, some of these other classics, if you're patient, you look around, you shop at some of these good shops. I'm wearing a Music Villa shop, which is another shop that I've purchased several guitars through. But Dave's up in Wisconsin is the one that had this one for me. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. And if you have questions and comments, we'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoy this. We're just a couple guys who love guitars and want to keep exploring guitars.
Oh, look, normally I couldn't do this on a Les Paul, but I can kind of reach it. If I put it on the neck pickup, I can do the volume knob stuff a little bit. $1,900. I know, kids, if you're looking for a new guitar and you think, boy, that's a lot of money. That is not a lot of money for a beautiful, unscratched, 12-inch neck radius. Pickups sound fantastic. Finish is classic and beautiful. You scored. And again, because I commented on this on an earlier video, what's happening to Rex in his old age? He's just buying guitars like right and left. Well, he's actually very thoughtful about this subject. And he only buys a guitar if he has like 15 reasons that it's awesome, and this one's got about 100 reasons that it's awesome. So, well played, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. All right.
That's ridiculously good, Les Paul.